Welcome to Leading with Curiosity. Command and control leadership is dead. We interview leaders, entrepreneurs, and executive coaches challenging old paradigms and fostering cutting-edge leadership. Here's your host, certified executive coach, Nate Leslie.
Hey listeners, welcome to Leading with Curiosity. This is a very special episode. I knew when I wanted to interview my father, Bob Leslie, I couldn't do it in the first episode. And then, episode after episode started clipping along, and I thought, I got to squeeze him in. He's going to start feeling left out. Anyways, I picked the perfect time to interview Bob. He's lives back in Canada now after over 30 years in professional hockey, mostly in Switzerland and Germany. He's now a leadership development trainer, largely working out of Switzerland and Germany, but due to the pandemic, he's been back in Canada, where he's now settled. But this week, he's in Switzerland, working with the St Gallen Management Institute with a number of their students, and with 18 different executives from 18 different companies. And so I caught up with him at a hotel in Davos, where I first drew a line in the sand in this shift that I was making a number of years ago. I joined him there to observe what the heck he was doing and to learn more about it. And it's there that I really found executive coaching. And that was the first step in this new journey that I'm on. So Bob Leslie, my father, and I explore what he's up to in Switzerland this week, and some really practical examples of what 3 or 4 days with him looks like and the impact that it has on leaders. And I hope you enjoy it. It was super fun, and I'm really proud to be able to share this episode with you today. Enjoy. Here it is. Hey, Bob, welcome to Leading with Curiosity.
Thank you very much, Nate. It's great to be here. It's been a while since we talked, and we're a few thousand kilometers away from each other, but it's all good.
We've been meaning to do this for ages, and I wanted to have you as a guest. I knew, being my father, you shouldn't be my first guest. You'll be about episode, 17 or 18 or something, but we chose to do it. You've been living back in Canada after 3 decades living in Europe, and you're back now in a pandemic working in Switzerland. So I thought it would be fun to kind of catch up with you while you're back into things after quite a break.
Yeah, well, everybody's really excited about this. This is my second seminar since I got over. I did one about a week and a half ago at the University of St Gallen, which is kind of like Switzerland's Harvard University. It's a big deal, and those people that were in that seminar are people from really all over the world. They're master's students who are already out in business and just doing more professional development through that university. And, they were so excited to be together because it's been so long, so much virtual, and people have pretty much had it, their nose full of it, I think. And then again, I know this one too, to have 18 people here. I had in St. Gallen, I had 16 people in the room and 12 people virtually, because they were from Australia and the States and other places in the world that they just couldn't make the trip because of COVID. So that was an interesting scenario to keep everything, because we do a lot of interactive work, and to keep that balanced. This one here, this seminar I'm doing is in German, and there's 18 people from, I guess, the Germanic countries of it's mostly Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. From many different countries. So yeah, there's always something new, and no group is ever the same, but it's pretty exciting to be back with people. And I know these people that the participants were excited to be back together again.
Mm-hmm. I've talked to a lot of leaders about the future of work and, this hybrid model of some days in the office, some days remote. Teams now being spread out because there's more competition for positions and more competition for great talent. So running a live event with some people in the room and some people virtual in different time zones and different continents, that's kind of a classic example of where this might all be headed. How did it go?
Yeah, really good. Actually, it was really exciting, and I think I know what those people are doing, and I always like to get into a lot of one-on-one coaching with them and teaching them about coaching, and then practicing coaching, and some stuff around motivation and just different things that they like, and personality styles, and so they were excited. And after the professor who runs that program took us out on a boat on the Bodensee, which is a big lake, great big lake between Germany and Switzerland. And we had fine eating and fine wines, and it was a great way for them to end. They were back doing all their presentations of their theses and things like that. So they were excited, and I must say I was excited, and I know that it went well. I've had a lot of contact with them since, and I mean, I hope it always goes well. And at this point in time, I've been pretty lucky that it has. But it's like hockey, every game's a new game, and you got to be as good as your last game. So, Bob, get at it.
Yeah, yeah. For listeners who don't know your background, which I'll mention in the intro, I had the great opportunity to watch you 30 years as a professional hockey coach, and now in leadership, and your partner, my mom, 30 years as a teacher, and it's taken us all around the world, and it's doing that again for you. What's that connection that helps leaders? Just you bring a fun energy to the room. I've seen you in action, but just that connection between sport and leadership in the corporate world for you.
Yeah, we kind of I do set that up at the start with all these people and call them corporate athletes, and to compare themselves. How do they compare themselves to a professional athlete? And a lot of them have never really thought about it before. But if you think about the commonalities, there's pressure, there's results oriented, there's competition, and so on and so on, and they get it. They get that comparison. And for me, really, the mindset of people, I'm working with pretty high-end management executives and leaders. The mindset is not that much different than professional athletes that I was lucky enough to work with for a long time. There's a lot of expectations, and just the world of business is very competitive. The world of professional sport is. So they get that, they enjoy that reference, and it hasn't been a big stride sideways or backwards or forwards to put things together to work with these people.
Reminds me, I often joke leadership would be easy if we weren't leading humans, whether you're leading hockey players or helping young professionals develop those leadership skills. It's really about interacting with people.
Well, yeah, I mean, Richard Branson says, a company is just people, and it's true. And so I had actually a good conversation with your brother when he was home in the summer there with Bo, and he said, Dad, sometimes people who are fans forget that hockey players are people. Professional athletes are people. They're not just numbers to shift around, And companies are the same. There's big companies, and they forget how important it is to treat your people well, or, just the whole scene of big business. It takes its priority over the personal interaction. And I think when you asked me the first question there, what do I see as important? I think it's the same thing I always thought of when I was a hockey player, professional hockey player, and a professional coach, and a professional general manager in sport. And now what I'm doing is it's about people. You could be tough on them, but be respectful. Have expectations, but be respectful. And a lot of times that goes missing.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And my brother-in-law sent me a video the other day showing this is a comedy thing, showing this old school sports coach compared to very modern coach, kind of hipster, and wondered which I am. And I think he had a pretty good guess as to which one I am. But I replied, it's so strange that fear and anger aren't great motivators with kids these days. It never should have been. And you were considered what we call, a player's coach, and really at the end of the day, you cared about your team.
Yeah, I think that, sometimes, certainly in the press in Europe and certain places, I was written as a player's coach, a feel good coach. Well, I'll take that anytime ahead of trying to make people feel like mud every day they come to the rink. Because people need to be treated like people. It doesn't mean you can't be tough, and it doesn't mean you can't put expectations. It just means, draw the line. And I think the amount of contact I have now with ex-players that I used to coach, I'll get an email here and there wondering what's going on, and I really appreciate those.
Yeah. Back to what you're doing now, your partnership with St Gallen University and St Gallen Management Institute and Mark McGregor and other companies. Just tell the listeners a little bit about kind of what your business model looks like and some of the great partners you have.
Yeah, sure. I have been lucky enough to work with about 4,000 people now since I retired from professional hockey, and in different forms. I've spoken 2 or 3 times to large keynote addresses of 500 people, whether that be in English or German. That's one format, which I really enjoy. But as well, we do seminars. We do 2 and 3 day seminars around. This one I'm doing right here is about change management, and the part I'm doing in this seminar is how change can affect you. How can it affect me? And I like to bring up, that I was fired 3 times and I changed clubs a few times. So change was nothing new for me. And talking to people who are affected negatively by change in business right now, it's good to help them reflect and to help them kind of find ways that they can deal with that works for them. There's no secret to it. It's just what works for you. So you asked, I do about 4 or 5 different platforms. You can't do everything. Sometimes a CEO or a managing executive will call and say, yeah, we have this situation. We'd like you to do this and this and this, or could you? And if I can't, I say no. I mean, you got to have a lot of confidence in what you do, because you're dealing with a lot of very smart people. And so far, so good. Nobody's shot me yet.
And that thing about change, as for me as an athlete and you as a coach, we were often looking, 6 to 8 months out to the end of the season, and where am I going to live this summer, and what team am I going to play on in the future? For a lot of people in career, not only physically, like that have possibly been with an organization for a long time, but then suddenly structures and systems change. Everybody brings their own level of experience and threshold, I guess, for change. Would you say that you see that in the groups you work with?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, for some people, they adapt very, very well. For some people, they get tired of things coming down from above because they come down from above. A lot of times they're not consulted. And I think that's one of the things we bring up in that dealing with change, is that consult the people that are going to be involved in the change. And there's a lot of good feedback can come from people that are in the organization, in the company, in the firm, that can help structure the change so it fits better, feels better. Some companies don't do that, and some people, it's very tough on them. And I guess, as you said, you and I and your brother, we all were in the game for a long time, and it can treat you really well sometimes. The game of hockey, I mean, it can treat you really well, and it can treat you pretty toughly. But you've got to figure out how to go about your own way. And if no one can sit down and talk to you about that, if you just go home and deal with it and worry about it, no, there's no winners there. We're all losers when we don't get the opportunity to talk to somebody, to express ourselves, to think about it in a critical way, that we can work ourselves through the change and how it affects us.
The most enjoyable part for me in doing this podcast is speaking with different leaders and thought leaders and leadership trainers, and the same themes come up. And just the other day, I hosted a panel for the Supporting Lions Institute, and the theme was involving people in planning and how to do that effectively. And
Right.
research shows, this might not surprise you, and maybe it'll come up tomorrow in Davos, Switzerland, there is that research shows that engagement increases, psychological safety increases, workplace, commitment, efficiency all increases when done well, when people are involved in the process. And we explored the risks of, let's say, bringing them in too early or too late, or how to actually do it. And we kept coming back to the other truth that people need their leader to create a vision that inspires them and to clearly articulate the vision, and then bringing in the right team members at the right time to plan the work and be involved and be able to, as you guys call it, have healthy conflict around, pitfalls and things to look out for. So as I just came off that Human Experience Summit for Supporting Lines a couple of days ago, as I kind of play that back to you, what does that make you think of in the work you're going to be doing in the next couple of days?
Yeah, this day is a little different from a whole leadership seminar. This is the last day of 4 days, and so I kind of have to balance on where I go with these groups. But it certainly will be. This will be more internal about how are they doing, how do they see themselves, how are they working their way through it. Do they have advice for other people, and they work in small groups, larger groups, make presentations. And then they look at their own team in terms of high performance teams and how are they doing? And many times they'll come up with the thing that, our vision isn't very strong. People don't really know what really our vision is. What's our mission here? What are we actually doing? Yeah, healthy conflict, trust. If we don't trust each other, then, to have healthy conflict, that doesn't mean arguing with each other all the time. It's healthy. It's having good discussions, because good discussions and colleagues and work bring about better solutions than if you're told to do it and so you do it. So empowerment and ownership for me. I think I was that kind of an ice hockey coach. I tried to do stuff with players, and I tried to bring people in and get the information from them, because there's a lot of really smart guys playing hockey. Why not let them help in some execution of things? And I believe that I had some success in that, and business has to do it.
When you think back to your last couple of days in St. Gallen, tell us a little bit about the themes that you were working on there.
Oh yeah, that was, we did a lot of coaching there. So, it's the basic startup. We try to get everybody involved. And then I did some work around motivation. But even earlier than that, did some work around just basically where they're at, what they're doing, what's meaningful to them, and what are the pitfalls that they're in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we worked towards actually doing the concept, the leadership concept by Bill Gates. He's got a leadership development idea that there are different kinds of leaders, and you have a choice. He's got them designated as a management style leader, a leadership style leader, a clienting style leader, a sales style leader. And, there's a lot to it. And they kind of look where they see themselves, and are they happy with where they are, and where would they like to go? And then I did some coaching tips and techniques with them, and they actually leave the room, fill in this matrix that I give them. Then the coaches stay with me, and we teach and talk about coaching tips, and then they coach each other. And then we flip that over and do the same thing again. The coaches now become the coachees or the executives. And I believe, and I know in my own heart, they really got a lot out of it, because one woman in particular, I remember from California, said, she actually said, when I was being coached, I kind of got a bit emotional about it, because there's some issues there that I need to deal with, and I'm not dealing with them, and whatever they were, the corporate issues. And so, out of the 16 people who were live, There was a lot of great feedback. I really debriefed them a lot there, Nate, and gave them an opportunity to each one to speak. We had a microphone so that the people who were online could listen to that. We passed the microphone from person to person to make sure that they got that. And it was a little tougher with those people online because running a split thing, there was lots of timing things that had to be done correctly. But the guys who were online, the men and women who were online, they also coached. They were put in meeting rooms and they coached. It was just a little different flavor for them. But I do believe that they, we went through some coaching tips with them as well, tips and techniques. And I do believe that they got a lot out of it as well. It was good. It was a really good seminar, and it was just so nice to be with people, and they were all nice, and it was so much fun, and all people from all over the world, and the guy from India made it in, and the woman from California, and so it goes. So it was fun.
Yeah, just like one-on-one coaching call where the person being coached is the one that needs to do the work. That's the first thing I noticed well over a decade ago when I started watching you move into this field. People have a perception they're going to go to this course, and all this information is going to be just fire hosed at them. But the thing that you guys do so well is the people do the work. You set up the exercises, and I have a hunch that in a normal day, a normal week, a normal month, the participants in their regular jobs don't have that dedicated, concentrated 2, 3, 4 days, even an hour, but to actually do the work on themselves. So maybe just expand on sort of the power of I when I was young, I used to say, like, so how much of the talking did you do? And you would say, well, hardly any. We set up the activity, we give them the themes, cut a couple of teaching points, and they go and do the work. And not so identical to what needs to happen in a one-on-one coaching call. So maybe just your perspective on kind of your experience through that as a leadership trainer.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think it's a really good point. Just in terms of a seminar, I do have a lot of people who say they enjoy the interaction, and people like the opportunity to talk about themselves and to investigate situations that they're in, whether they're really positive or kind of tough. So the interactive part, there's some things, it's like teaching. There's some things you set up first, but really these are the experts. The people who are the participants at the seminars, they're the experts. They're in business. They're dealing with people. They're dealing with companies. They're dealing with competition. They got internal crises. They got external crises, and so on and so forth. So they can bring a lot to each other. And as a leadership trainer, I kind of see my job. Well, I don't kind of see it. I do see it, is setting the table for those people to have the opportunity to be heard, to ask questions, to be asked questions. For instance, last week at the seminar, this one woman said it was really great to be asked these questions because I'm never asked them at work. And it was really good for me to write things down because they have to fill in the matrix on certain things, to write things down for clarity for myself. And that was the kind of feedback that came through. And so, as you said before, like, it isn't knowledge coming from the leadership trainer. It's expertise in terms of execution, ideas, involvement, etc., exchange. And I do learn a lot every seminar. I know I'll learn something tomorrow. I'll learn that I haven't spoke German for a couple of, for 18 months. And with 18 very smart people in the room, I better be sharp.
Yeah. I try not to let people know that I'm proud of my dad very often, but to know that you can pull that off in German is probably worth noting publicly here to the world. It's pretty awesome. I should say you're sitting in the room. It was a number of years ago where I said, I've been wanting to get into this industry in leadership for a long time, and I needed to finally draw a line in the sand. It was a good excuse. It was a successful business here at home in Vancouver that was keeping me involved in it, and I was having a hard time starting this new thing. And we said, I got to draw a line in the sand. So I'm flying to Switzerland. I'm going to join you in that very room that you're in right there in beautiful Davos, Switzerland. And you let me be involved in the facilitation of the coaching, which was people had admittedly not done very much of it, which is often the case when you do some coach training. And you let me be involved in the facilitation of that. Even it was new to me, so I was just doing some of the sort of the logistics part of deploying it and keeping track of time and giving some instruction. I took that back to Vancouver and described that experience with a group of minor hockey coaches at a pub night that we do with a youth hockey association called the Vancouver Angels, a female program. And lo and behold, Jeff Smith from Supporting Lines was sitting in the room, and he said, I'm an executive coach and we need to talk after this. And he told me about the Royal Roads program. And I know I went home. I don't know if I applied that night, but I did all the reading I could. So it just reminds me of that. There's a book by Guy Kawasaki called Just Start. And all these, as leaders embark on new challenges and people show up to your event and they're open to learning and they just actually start doing the work. I just think it's kind of an interesting story to share right now because of the impact that these small sort of course corrections can have in somebody's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you gave a few different parts to that story. People who, no one's ever so self-confident that they know everything. They might, if they're not self-confident, they might try to make you believe they know everything. People like the opportunity to work through things and express themselves. And I think that just in terms of what you're doing there, the one-on-one coaching and everything, you are giving people the opportunity to reflect, to self-reflect, and to look at where they are and what they like to do. How realistic is it for them? What do they know about it? Have they investigated it? Or have they just said, I'd like to do that? Well, that's easy to say. But given the chance, given the opportunity and given some guidance, people can really show some good stuff. And that's the part of the interactive that I like. I've had many people over these, 70 companies I've worked with say, oh God, we've had some things when someone comes in with their PhD and just talks for 4 hours and then we go home. And you know where that information goes. So, tap the knowledge of the people in front of you.
It just all that information gets used. Just the binders get used to prop up my laptop so that my Zoom camera is more straight on. I interviewed an executive coach in Boulder, Colorado, in one of my first episodes. His name's Stephen Morrow, who is highly sought after with CEOs of very large companies. And I think the title of that episode is called Leaders Suffer High Performers Disease. And I thought of it right now because you said no one's so self-confident that there's nothing that they need to work on. What he finds at the highest levels, CEOs of massive companies, it's the insecurity that how did I end up here and what business do I have being in this role, and also being so committed to being great at what they do that they seem to never quite feel like they get there. And so for listeners, it was a really awesome interview with Stephen Morrow. But again, there's themes coming up here from different episodes. And Bob just said it here that the people that he works with, the woman said, it's so nice to be asked these questions because it never happens in the day-to-day, which is a whole other episode we could go into about bringing that coaching culture, which is a massive movement right now in my industry, is helping people not just have a one-on-one coach like myself, but use the tools they're learning with you and actually use them in their regular one-on-ones. And of course, Supporting Lines has research around the impact that effective one-on-ones can have, and not just tactical, not just where are we at, what are sales at, what haven't you done, but those personal development one-on-ones is that, and living the values as a leader, the number one and number two things that you can do to move the needle on engagement and culture.
Wow. Yeah. No, I know you Supporting Alliance does a great job in researching and having, stuff to back up what they say. What you're saying there is absolutely the experience I have had dealing with lots of very, very intelligent people who really work hard. They're not sitting there in that office, playing games on their computer. I mean, there's a lot of stress and pressure, and they're dedicated and they want to succeed. But it's hard work.
Yeah. You mentioned you've worked with over 4,000 people now. Your gut feeling on the things that you hear say, I can say with certainty, lines up with the data of thousands and thousands of surveys and high performance index with supporting lines. And so it brings numbers and brings statistical relevance to the things that you see on a day-to-day basis while you're listening to leaders across cultures, across company sizes, because humans are humans, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's the human element is there. And listening to people who are very successful, I mean, they'll come across fairly strong. And sometimes, if they want to argue with somebody, don't argue with me, because I don't really know what you're talking about inside a company. I know all people, and they have some strong discussions sometimes, but that's okay. And the real, one of the things about the companies I work with, when I say 70 companies, I guess I've done more or less, but like tomorrow there will be 18 people from 18 different companies. And sometimes that's really, really healthy, because they can get away. If you're working with a team, not everyone who is subordinate to you may or may not say exactly what they mean, for obvious reasons. You're the boss, but when the bosses, or when the management people who are in these particular seminars come together, they do have a chance to kind of really lay it on the line to each other, and they actually benefit from that, because they do find out that, hey, I'm not on an island here. Like, there's a lot of people in big companies that are feeling like me. So that in itself is a positive thing, and what can I do about it? And what can we do about it?
Yeah. Bob, it's been a pleasure catching up with you from Davos, Switzerland. If we could just kind of move to wrapping it up, it's been great to hear the practical examples. And I think listeners, I get a lot of notes from listeners who say, I'm really enjoying the episodes because it's making me think of things a little differently. I'm listening to it on the way to work, and it's challenging me to think bigger picture.
Right. Sure. Yeah. No.
Yeah. What kind of closing remarks would you say around the work that effective leadership development has on individuals, maybe?
Well, I think, Nate, my mindset has always been, this makes sense. I mean, your listeners may not know, but at one time I was a high school counselor too, and worked with lots of kids who had tough things going on in their life. And they needed to talk to somebody, whether you could find ways to solve those situations or not. But I think the key element is treating people, getting some trust in your organization, which is hard, which is very hard. Getting people to, excuse me, getting people to come together to discuss things, to giving them the opportunity to express what they think. At the end of the day, if you're the leader of the company, you're going to have to probably make the decision anyway. But if you give people a chance to express their views and use that information to bring together, people will respect the leaders for that. Absolutely, 100%. And so I think leadership is not, it's not a position, it's a choice. What kind of leader do you want to be? How can you change? People have asked me many times, they said, well, leaders are born. Well, yes, some people are born leaders. That's true. But you can effectively learn to be a much different leader than you are by working at it, if you want to change it somehow. Because not everybody in a leadership position has had any training. They're good at what they've done on the way up the ladder. All of a sudden, they're the leader. They're going, holy cow, what did I just get myself into here? So they were good at coming up the ladder. Now they're at the top of the ladder. Now they have some pressure, and that's kind of like what you were talking about before. So The human element is there. Never forget it. Be respectful. Give people the opportunity to express, to work with, to empower, to have ownership, and enjoy life and put a smile. I think you've seen my seminars, and we have fun in there. Put a smile on people's face. We do some things that are a little bit quirky, but you know what? Life is too short to not have some humor and enjoy things and laugh. Put your head back and laugh and go in a positive direction.
I always find the title for the episodes from somewhere in the interview itself, and it's in the last minute or two here. There's some gold in there that we're going to dig up, and when Ben edits this, he'll make sure to get some of those highlights into the blog post as well. And we'll have links to LeslieGlobalLeadership.ca and your LinkedIn. And as long as they wouldn't otherwise choose me to do their work, I hope that companies find you through this episode and get a chance to have you work with their teams. I'm proud of you, Dad, and thanks a lot for doing this. And I'm glad we got around to doing it, and glad we're doing it from there in Davos.
Thank you very much. It brings back some good memories from when you came over to this exact hotel and helped me out. And I do think we actually had a couple of glasses of wine together too, didn't we?
Ja, viel Glück morgen in Deutsch.
Vielen Dank. Ja, es ist eine Herausforderung, aber ich bin sehr bereit, Spaß zu haben und ein positives Seminar zu leiten.
Super. Ciao, Bobby.
Ciao. Danke, Nick. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Leading with Curiosity. Please share, follow, and rate the show so that other leaders can make positive change in the world. Connect with Nate at nateleslie.ca. And remember, the brain behaves very differently when encouraged to think rather than told to listen.